I wanted to like hit you with a quote from your boy Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, love that guy, dude.
He's fantastic,
Oh,
right?
I love that guy.
He's got a quote, we all step in shit from time to time. We hit roadblocks, we fuck up, we get fucked, we get sick, we don't get what we want, we cross thousands of could have done it better and wish that wouldn't have happened in life. Stepping in shit's inevitable, so let's either see it as good luck or figure out how to do less often.
Yeah, that's. Oh, that guy's just like he's a poet, but like you know what I mean. Like, it's
I got
so good.
I got a similar one from Mark Manson
Yeah. Okay.
that's on the same vibe, uh, but it's a little bit more crass. It said, if you want to get far in life, get good at eating shit sandwiches. And not shit sandwiches in like poor quality sandwiches. He means like bread, turd in the middle. Get good at eating those.
You know, like I resonate with Matthew McConaughey so much because you know, like he's obviously when he started like his whole journey, you know, like in the movie world, and he doesn't look. I mean, obviously it came by chance, you know, like you know, his big saying, all right, you know, that big podcast that he had with Chris Williamson, and he, but he looks at life as like for me opportunity, right? So I always and I actually had a thing in December with family friends. We sat around a table and we had kind of had to say like what we're grateful for, kind of around the table. And the one thing that I said is opportunity. You know, it's something that I'm grateful for, and that's like something I think Matthew McConaughey is like, you know, he sees opportunity and he just kind of goes for it, you know, and he doesn't wait around. And you know, he says if you're gonna dive, then dive. Do you know what I mean? And like that is like something that I wake up every day. I've got an opportunity to wake up. You know, I don't count my opportunities, but I count my opportunity for life. Do you know what I mean? And everything that comes with it, and try and make the most of everything. And like that's something Matthew McConaughey says time and time again, and that's why like I love him so much because that's just you know.
Yeah, I think the other really cool thing about him is he tells like great story of, the beginning of his career, he was in all these rom-coms and he was considered the pretty boy and whatnot. And then he said he was done. He wasn't going to take anything that wasn't a serious opportunity. And he sat and he waited for years and he got offers to do more rom-coms and he turned them down.
Yes.
And it's not just taking opportunities, but also knowing your worth and knowing what's a worthy thing to go pursue. And I appreciate him for that. I also appreciate that he has this take it easy but still take it mentality towards things, because life hits you with a lot of curveballs. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for you to get knocked down to your feet or to your knees.
Yeah.
And there's like this balance of having grace with yourself, but also taking the bull by the horns and still, you know, having grace for yourself in the sense that you're not going to be overly hard on yourself, but being critical enough of yourself to keep progressing forward.
Yes.
And that's such a tough thing to balance.
Yeah, and I think like it's super cool to for him to have that perception on things because you know nothing is perfect. Like your journey is in life is never perfect, and in fact, I think that perfection is a perception, right? So I mean, give you an example is you might watch a game of football and you might think that this player has like had the best performance you've ever seen in your life, but I can turn around and pinpoint 10 different things that he did wrong. You might think it's perfect, but I might not, you know, and perfection is something that we all chase. And along the way, you're going to stumble and you're going to fall. And there's two ways you can kind of keep chasing that is not chase it, but you can either give up and quarrel and or you can get up and you can just keep going, you know, dust yourself off and keep going. And that for me, that's why perfection is an endless pursuit, right? Because and Matthew McConaughey actually said a speech, I think it was at the Grammys, you know, I think it was the Grammys. One of his most profound speeches, he said there's three things that he has in life. You know, there's something to look up to, something to look forward to, and someone to chase, right? So, and he says that he looks up to God, that's his belief, and he looks forward to coming home to his family, and then his thing to chase is himself in 5 years, right? So, and he's always chasing, and he gets to himself in 5 years, and he's like, but I want to get to myself in 5 years' time. And it's always this pursuit of wanting something more, chasing something more. And you know, like a path is never straight. You know, it's always going to go in different directions. But as long as your end goal and your end pursuit is always in mind and the same thing, you know, and it's never perfect, never perfect.
And I absolutely agree on the perfection is it's a made up. What's you say? It's a fugazi. It's a fugazi. It's a
Yes, yeah, forgot. Yes.
It's you're never gonna get there. And I think perfectionism to some degree, to some extent, is a form of procrastination.
Yes.
Because if you always have to wait for things to be perfect, then you never have to actually do the thing. But I think it's interesting that idea he says of chasing the person that he wants to be in 5 years' time. Some people might look at that and say that's constantly shifting the goalposts. Some people will point to the fact that life's a treadmill. You have to keep on moving to stay still.
Yeah, that's like, I don't know, like I always look at it and you know, I mean, there's so many things that have gone in plans that I had in my life that have not gone the way. I mean, trying to become a CA for one thing was never on my bingo card. You know, that was something that when I finished university, I wanted to go a completely different direction. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I want to be as successful as I can in my own eyes. And how I get there, I don't know, you know, but maybe a couple of years ago it was to go be an entrepreneur, for example. Now I see that end goal as becoming a CA and chasing it in that direction. But you know, in either way, I could have become successful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, especially like I always have this funny story of my first job 2 years ago. Our CFO, right, the head finance guy,
Yeah.
he had the most interesting career path because we were a business consulting company, and he did an accounting degree and then went into business consulting. And this was when the company was like still starting up, and they didn't have the CFO, so he just handled the finances, became the CFO,
Stepped into it,
and then left to go be a CFO at a bigger company. So he completely like skipped the CA route and did his own kind of way. But yeah, I guess like the being successful thing. Do you have barometers for your success?
I don't like to. I mean, everyone can say, "Oh, being successful is having a house and having this fancy car, and you know, like your measures and your limits." But I don't know. I think again, success is very similar to perfection. It's different in everyone else's eyes, right? So and yeah, I don't know. I've never really thought of what measures, what barometers, if you want to call them, or what would be that I've made it, you know. And I think, but I chase small things, small little moments in the lead up to that. And if that gets me to the point where I've got a family, I've got kids, you know, I've got my own house, I've got enough financial backing to give my kids the opportunities that I have and more, then for me that would be the ideal world of success, if you would want to call it.
Yeah, yeah. I've actually recently finished reading James Clear's Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've ever
Yes, I haven't read it, but I know a lot of people big fans of the book.
I put off reading it for so long. It's so fantastic. But at the end of the book, he had like this little note section where he just lists off rapid fire ideas. And the one that I really liked was his definition of happiness is not wanting change. So chasing happiness is like, I need to get that car, which means I need to get a new car. Or I need to get that house, which means I need to get a new house. You want to change it. As soon as you're like, I don't have anything I want to change, that's when you're happy. But he also says that's fleeting. Because there's always going to be something you want to chase.
Yes, yeah. It's probably like a wants and needs thing, right? I mean, what do you need versus what you want? I mean, everyone wants the flashy car. I wouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people want the flashy car and the big house. But do you need it? You probably don't. You know, you probably really don't. And I'm a guy who wants to have the flashy car, you know, at some point, just to experience and know what it's like to kind of, we always sit there on the side of the road and we marvel and be like, oh, check that Porsche GT3 RS, you know, one day, you know. Obviously we all want to have that and that's a want, but do I need that? No, maybe what I need is a 7-seater family car, you know, and that's just the way my life might play out, and that's cool, you know.
Maybe the thing you need is to prove to yourself you can get the car.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. That's
I also think of, are you familiar with Scott Galloway at all?
no.
You would love him. He is a traditional like hard-nosed, old-school man.
Yeah.
He often compares that men don't, or complains that men don't drink enough beers together anymore.
Oh, that is something I love to do. Oh,
But
tip me with a good time.
he has a great quote. Oh, he has a great idea where he speaks about, because he's super successful, one of the richest men in the media space, I'd say. He actually he took Chris Williamson out for drinks the one night, and Chris tells a story about how he got a little bit, few drinks in, and he eventually grabs Chris around the shoulder and says, "Chris, I'm going to tell you a secret. Money only matters until you can get a private jet. After a private jet, it's all down."
You know, I was actually thinking about this the other day, and maybe it's just the accounting side in me, but you know, like sometimes money is a zero-sum game, right? I like to think of it as this: you start with nothing, you might have it all, but the day you die, you've got nothing, right? So, and there's an accounting equation: assets equals owner's equity plus liability. Your debits must equal your credits, and what does that mean? It comes to zero, right? So, yeah, I think and I always say it's better to die with 0 in the bank than 5 million in the bank, you know, because that means you've left something out there. And, you know, it's great to have a lot of money. And that's actually a brilliant, you know, from what's his name again?
Scott Galloway.
Scott Galloway. Yeah, that's like a brilliant analogy, because, you know, what you might have everything and but then after that, you know, it's kind of, well, then what next, you know?
Yeah.
And
So the reason I bring him up is he has this great quote where he speaks about it's not a quote, but a story he tells young people trying to make it to where he is. And he says, okay, plan out the life you want to live, the lifestyle you want to live. And for him, it was he wanted to have his dad be in his old age and have the best doctors, the best care, and be able to take his kids anywhere he wanted to. He went and he worked it out, and then he gives like a fictitious number. He says, imagine that it takes 10 million in the bank for the reoccurring revenue on that money to get you the lifestyle you want. Hit 10 million and don't save $1 more. Spend every single thing, because there's no point. Otherwise, if you don't have a cap on how much you want to make, you just can keep on chasing, and you can keep on going, because if there's no end target, then it's unlimited growth, right?
Exactly. It's interesting because, I mean, like, obviously, you know, we go back to what we said earlier with Matthew McConaughey. You know, he says to himself, well, he wants to chase himself every 5 years, and I like the chase, and not with the woman, but you know, well, I like that too. But yeah, you know, you always want to chase something. You always want to go after something, and for me, if you don't have that, then you've got to find motivation from somewhere or something else, you know. And I don't know. I like to have certain things and moments that, I mean, this year, for example, you know, there's the CA that I'm trying to chase. I've just written my first board exams a couple months ago, and that was like, you know, one thing that I said to myself this year, like, let's get that done. Now I've got High Rocks coming up, you know, but it's not just to participate in High Rocks. It's now for me to, you know, compete against my brother, you know. But it's like I'm just trying to chase something and keep myself going every single day. And when that's done, you know, I've got to try and sit down with myself and go, okay, cool, what's next? But it's little milestones, you know, and it's trying to improve myself. And I always think it's important to at least have something to chase, and in small measures. It doesn't have to be great measures, but I mean, it's an interesting take, you know. Once you hit your limit, you know, just go out and do
live.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah. I also used to be on the constantly chasing kind of thing, and then I heard that quote of, you know, you've already achieved things you said would make you happy. And now I think a lot about auditing my life instead of setting goals. Like, what right now am I unhappy with? And let that become the goal, so that you're constant. Because otherwise, if you're just constantly moving forward, you know, you don't spend 10 minutes thinking about your life and you spend 10 years wasting it. And then where's the time gone? But I think it's interesting to talk about always having like these new challenges and stuff, because you had this great quote that you shared was you wanted to be in your biography is one destination of many roads traveled. And I love the idea, even though I'm quite contrary to it. So I've always been a big fan of depth is better than breadth. I've always used the example of you pay more per hour for a brain surgeon than for a GP.
That's
Because there's more value in the depth of something, but you kind of suggest you believe in the opposite.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
So yeah, when I say that, I mean, there's obviously something that I might end up having, you know. And for me, it's the idea of the family and the kids and you know all of that. But again, it muddles up in between, you know. And it's like, well, I might go in this direction, and I might have this many relationships, and you know, maybe it's not going to work out the way that I really wanted to, and you know, that's cool. And but in the other side of things, you know, there's just so many different ways that life can go, and you always for me, I always have something in my mind that I want to end up with. And for me, that's that family, that's you know, and that's the house and you know, but how I get there, it can muddle up in so many different directions. You know, I could be as poor as ever and still have that, and but I've still had to get to that journey to get to that destination. Or I could be super successful and still get to that destination, and everything along the way leads up to that one end thing, for example.
So almost like the details of the journey don't matter. It's more the place you end up. You want it to be the same.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, to a certain extent, you know. And obviously maybe the goalposts shift if we, like we said earlier, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But yeah, I think it's just, for me, there's certain things that obviously in life that you want, right? And again, there's a lot of different destinations and different places you can end up in. But I think if you find something that you really want, you know, you're going to get to that point. But again, the journey is unknown. You know, it's so many different ways and directions.
Yeah, I always think I had this one friend with me when I was still in my bartending days that told the story about his dad, and his dad was working as like a teller at a bank, you know, and some lady came in to update the software on the computers, and she like this back like in the early 2000s, so she plugs it in and kind of looks like the Matrix to him where things just fly, and his dad just asks, "Hey, how did you end up having this as a job?" And the lady's like, "Well, I did this degree and this degree, and I just started working here." And then Ryan's dad worked in IT until the day he died. So it's he didn't have a clue about that world, but just something he stumbled upon.
Exactly.
And that's something that's great, you know. And I think people get kind of fixated on identity. It's like who you are now is who you must always be, which I don't believe in that whatsoever. You know, I think who you are changes with time, and that's kind of a beautiful thing to life.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I know my dad had a similar kind of journey. You know, he was someone that had a law degree. Now he's in construction. You know, it's a completely opposite side of the coin. But you know, but he's always been the person who's made the most of it. You know, he's dug himself in when it got hard, and you know, persevered through all of that. And it wasn't easy for him to start his own business, for example. You know, and stick through that for 20, 30 years almost now. So, and it's not something that he ever saw himself doing, but everything that he's done up until that point has got him to where he is, you know, to today. And you know, I think that's interesting. The same kind of thing happened to me. You know?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask my mom, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't have told you, yeah, I'll move to South Africa someday. She probably didn't even know South Africa existed, you know? But yeah, South Africa is an interesting place, dude. And I think we've had some recent news
Here we go.
that we get into. Uh, maybe on the topic of the starting a business and whatnot.
Yeah.
So Dad did that. So with the tax changes that recently happened now, capital gains tax. Oh, sorry. Let's actually not start with that. Let's go for the VAT threshold.
Yeah.
So they're raising the VAT threshold from 1 million rand to 2.3 million rand for companies to register, right? That means that like you don't have to register now to make 2.3 million in revenue yearly. For those of you that don't know, that's one of the changes that came with the budget. And that has some implications, obviously, for people starting businesses now.
Yes.
But is there an incentive for people to now unregister themselves?
Well, for sure. I mean, there definitely would be. There's obviously some implications you would have to think of. But let's start with the incentive first, right? I mean, one, you paying for VAT is well, by not paying for VAT, you freeing up cash flow, right? So that's like a big thing. and it's depending on your turnover. I mean, if you are less than the 2.3 million and you registered, every 2 months you're kind of going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay your VAT. So that removes that issue of having to find that cash flow every 2 months to kind of pay that VAT. The other thing is, it increases the level of business, right? So sometimes people will neglect growth so that they don't have to register for VAT because of that cash flow issue and the admin intensive things that come with it and the additional costs to reconcile your VAT, to submit your VAT, to outsource all of that stuff as well if you can't do it yourself. So it increases the level of business, I think. So and I think there's a lot more pros than cons. I think the one negative impact and something that people would have to consider is, if you've purchased inventory, if you've purchased assets, and you were previously registered for VAT, and you go and deregister, you're deemed to have sold those assets and that inventory. So if you've claimed VAT on that, you must then, as if you have sold that, you must go and now pay the VAT on that. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't, kind of thing, So you would in essence still have to go and pay some sort of VAT in the process of deregistering. Long-term benefit, if you're never going to hit that threshold, it might be worthwhile sinking that cost now. But if you're going to end up passing that threshold in the future, you might as well just stay as if you registered at the moment.
Yeah, so with all these changes, the kind of lens that I tried looking at it through is, what is the government trying to signal to the people on what they should do? And I guess with this one, the first thing that came to mind was, this is kind of an admission by the government on like, hey, unemployment's still rampant and we're struggling to fill those jobs. Go out and be entrepreneurs, employ people. But two, what you just said on, if you have assets, then you were basically damned if you do, damned if you don't. It makes me think of like software-based companies, tech companies, because you don't have a physical product that you're selling at a certain time. So you would have no repercussions for that. Do you think they're trying to support that industry a little bit more?
Possibly. I mean, look, it's obviously if you make taxable supplies, that's the big catch. And taxable supplies don't just necessarily sit on inventory; it's services rendered as well. So in that instance, if you deregister for VAT, I don't believe you would have to still pay VAT if you were to continue rendering the same service. But to speak to your point, it definitely does increase the need for more business and creating jobs for sure. And I mean, I think you might have seen, but they've almost withdrawn, they've overdrawn on their budget, in a sense. So now they're trying to free up some revenue somewhere else and trying to make it more appealing for us. And I don't see this little threshold of 2.3 million kind of turning around and to bite people in the back kind of thing, and it's going to drop again in a couple of years. I think they're trying to encourage trade and encourage reducing unemployment, creating more jobs. Because these small businesses, these side hustles and stuff, they will often cut costs and cut the size of their business so they don't have to face these admin issues. And to be honest, that's where a lot of your unemployment would be covered, and you're expanding those smaller businesses. You're going to create a heck of a lot more jobs with all these small businesses and these informal trades, if you want to call it. So I think it's a great move.
I also do think, I like that one. I always say, like, we need to have more sense of entrepreneurship in South Africa, and the government does need to do us some favors because we're starting from such a low point. There's also, I think the most interesting one for me was the kind of windfall effect we got from gold and platinum being at an all-time high because of the world being a super unstable place now. I mean, the Iran incident was days ago. So it's unfortunate events that favored us, fortunately, and now we kind of get some of these benefits. But I think the fact that this so-called like sin tax that's been so heavily in our favor with petrol, tobacco, and alcohol, it's almost like the government's trying to say, we're going to keep these at inflation rate, keep you guys happy, you can get to the bride still. But I wonder if some of that is also a distraction tactic of, this keeps people relaxed, this keeps people distracted from other problems that might be going on.
I think, look, if you look across the board, a lot of the stuff that's increased, I mean, the tax tables for one is I kind of think we've fallen behind because in previous years on the tax tables, because they haven't moved them for inflation for 2-3 years. So now we're behind 2-3 years in inflation in tax, but now they've moved that tax table by an inflationary movement. And I think the same applies for the sin tax. It's, I think year on year they've actually gone and increased it for inflation. And look, inflation is not great. It's not great in South Africa. And it's the only way you can kind of maintain. I mean, why do we increase our prices at a business every year? It's to keep up with inflation. So you're keeping people happy, and also, look, I think if it increased by more than inflation, you're trying to discourage people from consuming alcohol, and and trying to stay off using more public transport and not spending fuel on their private cars and private. If it was to increase by more than inflation, but then you run the risk of, well, your business starts to drop. So then what's your give and take?
I wonder if some of that's also affected by the high rate of tourism that we have now, and us kind of leaning into having that be a major market. Do you think there might be any risk? So, we've benefited from global instability, but if things calm down in the next 2-3 years, do you think there's a chance this kind of inverses on its head?
I think if we were to leverage this position in our favor, look, I don't think the rand is doing well. I just think the dollar is not doing well. So, and obviously with all the geopolitics that's going on, prices, like you mentioned, are in our favor in a certain sense. And I don't think so, because if you look at it from now, you're going to invert and be more stringent, then your whole national speech that Cyril had, your SONA and your budget speech, you're looking for long-term stability in a country that's trying to break into your third world barrier.
Or first world.
First world barrier.
It'd be really bad if it was breaking into the third world.
Into the first world category. So, and look, you want to encourage people to pay tax, and the only way you encourage people to pay tax is if you improve your economy and you improve your country, and that's the only way people are going to pay tax. Or become more willing to pay tax.
There's a second way I'd actually say it also improve the quality of services that are using the tax. Improve road quality, improve infrastructure, stuff like that. And I think Cape Town's done a great job of that. I think that's one of the places of exception. I think Joburg is really hoping to catch up, and God, I hope at some point Durban does something about that CBD.
Durban's never been a tourist destination for me.
Dude, when we were kids, we went to Durban every single holiday. We used to love it, and then it just got like dirtier and dirtier every single year now. But there's no reason whatsoever that Durban should not be our version of Florida.
And it can be, it literally can be. And I mean, I remember in school going on water polo tour. I mean, I think we also went on rugby tour down to Pietermaritzburg. I mean, not Durban itself, but that whole road that from Durban into Joburg, that Durban is a massive port, a harbor where a lot of our import trade is coming from. So there's no reason why that shouldn't be a place where you're seeing a lot of infrastructural development. Like, why not?
Yeah, I think the other one's also, America's always the best example for a good economy. I know it's not doing the best right now, but I think America in its down years is still better than 99% of countries in the up years, right? And I think one of the things that's interesting there is you obviously have companies can start on any coast that they want. They can start in any environment. And people tended to flock to places like California and Seattle and New York. New York, it was because that's the first state, so that's where the majority of people just begun. But California and Seattle and Florida, which is now, I don't know if you know this, but Florida has the highest rate of immigration from within the states. Most people are flocking to Florida. The reason is people move for the weather. Why stay in North Montana, where you're basically on the border of Canada, freezing your butt off, when you can go stay in California? So if you look at it from that perspective, there's no reason that Gauteng should be our most populated province. It has the worst environment out of all of them. So you need to up Durban's quality. Obviously, Cape Town's doing well. You need to up East London's quality, and then make it a place that people want to move to, and that breeds businesses there, that breeds competition, and so on.
I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Maybe for like the average Joe, I think the biggest implication was the tax-free savings account changes. So I'll be honest. I want you to explain this to me like I'm a dummy, because I started my tax-free saving account this weekend.
Yeah.
And to my understanding, it's like they've now changed your yearly contributions to 46K, which means you can now contribute more per year, but the lifetime hasn't changed, right? That stays the same. So you get this benefit of then going to maximum lifetime much quicker, and then obviously the compounding interest is very important. But I guess the thing that I want to know is, what flexibility do you have in these tax-free savings accounts? Because I see some people debating on which one is the best and why it's the best.
Yeah.
Is this just something that like you pump money into and then you just forget about it until 60, or do you have some influence control over this?
So you definitely do. So I personally have one myself. I've geared my risk up to the max. Well, not to the max, but very high. So obviously more risk, more reward. The reason why is because, I mean, it sits there. You don't touch it until you retire, if you want to say that, or until you think that, okay, it's the right time to kind of. So why not put a lot of risk on it and just get great returns? It's money you're never going to see. So I think you definitely do have control. You can shift your tax-free savings from different portfolios because it's linked to your ID number, your tax reference number. So you can shift it from a bank to an investment institution, not a problem. So you definitely do have control over that. And if you're sitting with it on easy equities, you can play with that however you want. You can move it in stocks and different portfolios and bonds and whatever you kind of want to do. So flexibility in that sense, you have a lot. You have a lot.
So it's interesting. I thought it was literally just like a savings account that people would put money into monthly. So you're saying you can go and invest that however you want. What about offshore investments? So can I use my tax-free savings account to buy stock in Nvidia or well, let's just say Nvidia, because it seems like they're going to the moon every single time I check them.
Yeah. So I do think you can. I have a financial advisor. He's put a lot of my TFSA on offshore equity. So I do think you can. Look, if you're a tax resident in South Africa, you qualify for a tax-free savings. And if you're a tax resident in South Africa, you're taxed on worldwide income. So whether your money harvests benefits overseas or within the country, that money is still taxed. Although it's a tax-free savings, it's still income in South Africa. It's seen as income in South Africa. So I do believe you can move it offshore.
How does that work with crypto then?
I wouldn't say I'm clued up on crypto.
Right.
So yeah, I tend to stay away from crypto. I don't see tangible benefit in it. So I don't know. I can't give an opinion on crypto.
Crypto is the most crazy rabbit hole I went down, and it's quite crazy that you have churches of crypto coins at this point.
You can pay in Bitcoin now. I mean,
but also you don't want to be paying in Bitcoin now. It's not looking too great for them. Maybe the last one that you said you had a financial advisor. Very rare move for people. I've spoken to a few people that have financial advisors, and I've spoken to a few people that are skeptics. What's your opinion on how much should you know and how much should you just offload to someone that knows better?
So look, I think you can teach yourself a lot of things, right? You can definitely teach yourself on stocks, movements, like markets. You can sit there and watch it yourself. You can read books. You can listen to podcasts. I simply have him in an advisor capacity. I obviously understand a lot of it myself, and I communicate with him. I've got a very good relationship with him. And the other day I actually sent him an email and I said, listen, I'm actually thinking of moving my TFSA into a more stable growth, medium risk kind of portfolio. What do you think? I'm not seeing great returns right now. And then he's actually the one who turned around to me and said, sit tight. Like there's a lot of geopolitics going on at the moment. And obviously I've got a full-time job. I'm not going to sit behind a computer and study geopolitics and the movement and these equities and these stocks. And but that's his job. He's got a team that does that, and he knows best. I could have easily gone to by myself and moved that to a stable growth fund, with my TFSA, for example. But he's the one who knows better than me. It's a small fee that I pay, really small fee. And to be honest, I could just pull my money out now or move it myself into my own personal management if I really wanted to. I'm not going to lose a lot of monetary value, because the fees on those people are not significant, especially given the size of my portfolio.
I think some people's concern would be that they think that, their financial advisors to be would take advantage of them. So do you have like maybe like a how-to for dummies, for people like know these 5 or so general things, and then go seek one so you can know what they're talking about?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing, are we talking now specifically tax-free or just investment?
Investment in general.
Okay, so obviously there's a couple of things you need to look at. You need to look at why you're investing. Why are you saving? Are you saving for retirement? Are you saving for maybe buying a place? Are you saving just to have an emergency fund? So why, because each different criteria, you have a different kind of niche or market for it, right? So if I'm looking to retire, tax-free savings and retirement annuities are where I'm going, But if I'm looking to have some sort of a savings pocket where if I maybe I'm out of a job, or I need to put new tires on my car, or a little bit of an emergency pocket, but you still want to see growth, then you've got your fixed income, your fixed savings, your bonds, your much more stable growth, controllable growth. So that's the one thing.
Also, like if you said about buying a house, that you want to look at that, you probably want to max out your credit score and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing with this, a lot of these things, is you can set up debit orders now. So it's almost, you never see the money go out your account. It just goes out, and you don't have to think twice about, this month I might save $5,000, or so that's the one thing. 2 is risk appetite. So when I say that, is how quickly do you want to see your money grow? If you want to see it grow quickly, you've got to be willing to take more risk. Are you willing to take more risk? So that's risk appetite. That's probably number 2. Number 3 is you've got to understand the gains coming out of that. So obviously when you invest in markets and equities, you get dividends. What impact does dividends have? Obviously, if it's local dividends, you're not taxed at all on local dividends. If it's foreign dividends, there's potentially different implications. So you've got to understand what returns are you getting. Are you getting interest? And this is where a financial advisor comes in handy, because he can tell you these things, and he can say to you, okay, we're going to issue with something called an IT3B and an IT3C, and that's what you use to declare your interest in your dividend income, your capital gains. What capital gains implications do you have on your investments if you withdraw? All these small things. So that's probably the 2 or 3 things that I would say, like you've before you even seek a financial advisor, is are you considering all these things, and can you handle that yourself? Are you knowledgeable enough? Can you equip yourself? If you can do that and you understand that, not really worth getting a financial advisor, right? I would recommend that you sit down with someone. You don't have to give them your money, but you can sit down with them and say, okay, what do you think I should do with this appetite and this goal that I have? And if I want to set up for retirement, what should I look? They're going to do that with no obligation. They will do that with no obligation.
And if you, for example, work for a company, like we work with 10X, where we put into I don't know if it's Provident Fund. Provident Fund with a company match and whatever. Can that be used for TFSAs with a financial advisor, or is that its own thing?
No, so TFSAs are kind of ring fenced. So what happens is you will pay, let's say you pay your 46 grand in a tax year. If you take that money out, your 500,000 rand limit drops. You can't contribute back again. So once you take money out, it's out for good. You can't. So the only way a TFSA works is if you put money in, and at the end of your life cycle, of however you want it for, then you can take it out, right? Provident Fund, completely different thing. You can have a Provident Fund with a business that your employer, And if you leave that employment, that provident fund follows you. So if you go to another employer who has a provident fund, that provident fund can be transferred into their provident fund. So it moves with you. If you're unemployed or you go to an employer who doesn't have provident fund, then you can kind of privatize that, or you can give it to an investment firm, right? So you can, whichever you decide. But that provident fund retirement annuity, that's taxed completely differently. Completely different tax table, which has also changed now with the budget speech.
Interesting. You mentioned capital gains tax on there a moment ago.
Yeah.
With the increase of 2 million to 3 million. So obviously, the way I understand capital gains tax is if you sell something for a large profit, you get taxed on that.
Yes.
And that big movement from 2 to 3 million, that screams to me something within the housing realm, because outside of Cape Town, that's probably going rate for family houses between that 2 to 3 million range. Do you think that was the main intention, or do you think there's like another intention in that change?
I think it's about time they did it. So that's a primary residence exclusion. So if you live in South Africa, and let's say this place that we're in right now is your primary household, it's where you live, it's where your family is, it's wherever you go in the world, this is where you return. This is the house that you come to. That's considered your primary residence. If you buy this place for 2 million and you sell it for 8 million, the first 3 million of that 5 million rand profit, you don't pay tax. You immediately excluded from that first 3 million. So that's the capital gains implication on that. Look, you've got maximum marginal tax rates for individuals and trusts on capital gains. With businesses, you've got an 80% inclusion rate. So if I make 5 million rand profit on an asset, for example, where I trigger capital gains, 80% of that capital gain is included in my tax bill. There's a calculation and steps you follow to get to that point. But I don't want to complicate it too much. To answer your question directly, that 3 million rand is for primary residents, and it's about time they increase that, because in a place like Cape Town, property market is through the roof, and it's been 2 million for years. So I think it's about time that, especially for a place like Cape Town, that they've increased that.
Do you think so? Obviously, there's the big housing crisis in Cape Town now, where properties are going through the roof, and you'd think that one of the criticisms can be that people are extorting the system and selling for way more than they should and making more money off of that, and this kind of actually allows them to make more money off of that. Do you think that that's an unhappy side effect, or is that just they're kind of enjoying this, the housing market's bringing them a lot of money, so why not keep on going,
I think so. I mean, you can look at it from both sides of the coin, right? I mean, you've got someone who's had a family home for years, right? They've now, and just as a result of this property market boom, they've reaped the reward. They're not someone who's buying investment property. It's just their house, right? They've reaped the reward of it. And now SARS has turned around and said, cool, let's actually, kind of circumvent or help you with that kind of unwanted benefit, if you want to call it. Well, yeah, let's call it
unintentional benefit.
Yeah, unintentional benefit, let's call it that. And now they're kind of rewarding you, or they're giving you that leeway to say, okay, cool, let's give you an extra million where you don't have to pay tax. That's the one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, well, now you're actually encouraging people to ramp up the property value, because they get for me, immediately, I would think I'm going to try and bump my close price up by more than $1 million, so that I don't pay tax on that $1 million.
Yeah, $1 million extra rand of profit is ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's no tax on that. So, yeah, for sure. I think there's measures that obviously being discussed. Capping Airbnbs, for example.
Yes. We actually had someone that works in real estate come and break down some of the things, and it's an interesting problem, because obviously South Africa is not the only people that have this problem. New York, Barcelona, all these places, and the way they've all looked to tackle it has gone differently. But no one's ever solved the issue, and
it'll always be there. I think it'll always be there.
I think the only real option for Cape Town would be to just increase the supply, because the issue is that too many people want to live here. There's a whole lot of area to expand outwards, but then they're going to have the problem where if all action, all companies, all businesses happen in CBD, doesn't matter how far you expand outside the mountains, people are going to have this commute issue. Traffic's already become one of the worst in the world.
Yeah. I've actually got a friend in real estate. He's in the selling market, and he's always got buyers. People that are coming to him saying that they want to buy property, and he always says like, he can make something happen, and 9 times out of 10, he finds something for someone, but it takes time. And the reason why it takes time is because he likes to say there's no stock. There's no stock. So but again, you got to look at now your infrastructure, your ability to spend on infrastructure. Can the Western Cape afford to put up developments? Everyone's trying to develop in Sea Point, and with all the developments going up in Sea Point, your housing market in Sea Point is.
Yeah, and you also start to ruin the aesthetic of Sea Point, which makes it very popular. I always had the story when we were looking for a flat at the end of last year. We went to the one house viewing, and it was a decent place, It was cute, but it was like out in Riverland, so it's like not really like the best side of Cape Town, and it was going for a price as well. Like it was quite the expensive place. And we went to this open viewing. This one lady was there, and she's selling how much she wants this place. Like she's basically on the verge of tears. She's talking about how great this place would be for a family. And then when the real estate agent was like, hey, can I just get your like details for the application? She goes, no, I'm verified on Property 24. It'll automatically send to you. And I was like, you can be verified on Property 24? People being so competitive for housing here. It's just, it is extremely difficult. But hopefully the government's done pretty well in Cape Town. I'm sure they can think something.
I think they've actually now recently announced that levies, rates, and all taxes are actually being reduced, and then I think up to 500,000 Rand property value, you don't pay rates, levies, and taxes. Obviously, levies is on an apartment building, but I think your rates and taxes are up to 500,000 Rand. You don't actually pay. So I think that's a way to kind of free the burden of because that's a hidden cost. And sometimes when you buy a property, you always think mortgage bond is this amount, and then you've got to remember on top of that, I've still got to pay rates, levies, taxes.
And maintenance.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. There's one more I want to hit, and that's that single discretionary allowance being raised.
Yeah.
So you can interpret that in two ways. It's either the government saying we're quite happy with the rand stability, or them saying we've got no choice. Like it's going to happen either way. What do you think is the?
Look, I think it's great. I think you've got a single discretionary allowance of 2 million. So that's obviously where you don't need tax clearance to send that money outside of the country. And then after that, you get an additional 10 million that you can send out the country, but you need a tax clearance certificate for that. And that's within a tax year. But to speak to the 2 million single discretionary allowance, I think that's a great way for people to hedge right now, because, for example, you can go and secure money offshore or outside the country, invest outside the country, and let's say it turns, right? Now you all of a sudden you want to bring that money back into the country, and now you've made a good gain on it, right? So I think it's encouraging people to send money outside of South Africa. I think it also signals that we kind of want to encourage people to bring business towards South Africa. We're kind of signaling, well, we're opening our gates to kind of send money outside the country. So we're looking pretty strong right now. So let's, it's a signal of good economic conditions at the moment. So I think it's great. I obviously, if I had 2 million, I would send 2 million out the country. But I think a lot of people are going to be pulling the trigger on that for sure.
Yeah, I wonder how that's going to work now with the American threats to put us on the what do they call it? It's not the hit list, is it?
No, it's something about their tariffs. Obviously we're not good friends with.
Yes,
America, but they've got like I don't exactly remember what it's called.
It's a relationship we definitely need to try and balance a little bit more. It is going to happen. So that's been kind of like your current trajectory, is you've kind of really worked into the CA kind of you seem like you've learned a lot into this. You seem like quite well educated. Is this something, obviously you want to get your qualification, and you also said you wanted to get, there's a second qualification.
FNVA.
FMVA.
Yeah.
What is that for us?
So FNVA stands for Financial Modeling, Valuation and Analysis.
So you're an Excel expert.
Freak in the sheets. No, I'm joking. Am I there? Yeah, so it's financial modeling, valuation, and analysis. So to speak to your first point, yeah, again, it wasn't, like I said earlier, CA wasn't the direction I ever wanted to go in. I initially wanted to go into investment and wealth management. Took a crack at the CFA level 1 twice, didn't pass twice. And then I kind of decided, let's go CA. And my current boss actually convinced me to go CA. Which I'm super grateful for. So yeah, I think again, I always want to learn. I always want to improve what I know, and finance is always something that's interested me. I mean, I took business in school. I took accounting in school. I've always wanted to go investment. I've always wanted to go finance. And I think it's a well-rounded qualification. You know, a lot of CAs go, you can become a CFO. I mean, you don't have to be a CA to become a CFO, but yeah, you can be a CFO of a mining company. You can be a CFO of a tech company. You know, but because you become a well-rounded individual in the financial space. And I think the reason why I want to go into financial modeling is I love projections. I love forecasting. I discount cash flow models. Like it's just something that's, you know, super interesting to me. Evaluating businesses, valuations, all these kind of cool things. You know, it's just something that, and CA teaches you that, but to kind of specialize, I think FMBA is a.
How do you think this love for it kind of came? Do you think there's just like a natural progression, or do you think there was like kind of a moment where you just realized this is what you want to do?
I don't know. I think that's something I've never really thought about, to be honest. I think it's just something that's naturally I've taken a liking to. I go back to my school days. I mean, I always used to go to accounting, and you know, I'd sit in accounting, and I'd kind of dread accounting, and I'll be like, oh. And I think one day it clicked, you know, towards my final exams, and assets equals owner's equity plus liability, you know. And it was, I think maybe at some point in high school, it kind of I turned it, and I was like, cool, this is, you know, and that's the point where I decided to go, let's check the CFA thing out, you know. So yeah, I think I wouldn't say there was a specific moment or a specific thing that's kind of, it's just something that I've progressed in interest in.
Yeah, I think certain career paths are interesting. You know, if you think of someone like a doctor, it's obviously you can tell when a good doctor is a good doctor, but there's no hard data to kind of define it. It's not like I saw X amount of patients today, therefore I was better than I was before.
Yeah.
But there's some careers where you can physically see that.
Yeah.
Like if you work in construction or you're a carpenter or whatever, you can see the value of your craft getting better.
Yes.
It becomes more muscle memory.
Yeah.
And interesting things like tech, data science, finances, there's just like the numbers just start coming quicker and you start going through faster. I think progression is addiction.
Yeah.
Becoming
absolutely.
better. People think that passion comes first and then dedication, but I tend to think it's the other way around. Like you get stuck in something and that's when you become passionate for it.
Yeah, and I think I resonate that a lot with and I look at my boss, for example. His inspiration to me, to be honest. He qualified as a CA and a registered auditor by the time I think he was 25 or 26, which is incredible. I mean, that's and now I speak to him and I kind of pick his brain on tax and on investment and, you know, all these things, and it just comes to, you know, it's like, oh, but think about this and think about this, and like that's so cool. You know, imagine I'm sitting at a table and someone blurts something out about I don't know, tax, for example, and I can turn around and say, okay, but that's all good and well, you say that, but you know, this is actually the mechanics. And a lot of that bores people, but I think for me, it's like, you know, I wouldn't call it an addiction, but a passion. You know, it's something that I just thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, I think hearing an expert speak about anything is incredible. Yeah. I think I always think of the one quote from Good Will Hunting. I don't know if you've watched it.
Yeah.
It's Will Burns' that proof needed for the professor, and the professor trying to put it down. He says there's only a handful of people in the world that can tell the difference between you and me.
Yeah.
But that gap is insurmountable.
Yeah. Yeah.
How, like, if you know enough to know the gap between the good and the great, or the great and the best, seeing them just be passionate about something is incredible. But maybe to your boss, who you said who's been a good mentor for, or who's been a good mentor for you, mentorship is something that I've thought a lot about this year, just because I listened to this one lady talk about a problem with women right now, or women and men, is that you don't have the aunties at the table anymore at these family dinners. And I thought about that. That's true, but you also don't have the uncles anymore. Like I didn't have really any male figures in my life as a kid, except for my dad. And this might be a surprise, but my dad wasn't the best male role model. So I kind of think of, how do we get better role models out for young men? How do you actively be a better role model for people,
Yeah, I think, look, I like to be the person who a lot of people can come and speak to. I'd always encourage people to speak to me about sensitive things and things that are troubling them. And it's not easy for a lot of people to, and the men, I think, in today's world, like, it's not easy for, and I sometimes myself am super vulnerable, and I show that to my brother. I show that to a very select few people, but I do that, and I think for me it's a good outlet. And I think a good thing is when you're having a conversation with someone is to turn around and admit, kind of in instances where you've said something wrong, you've done something wrong, and you learn, and then I think by you learning yourself, you're kind of teaching other people to do the same thing. And it's cool, sometimes outsmarting someone in a sense is like, like I can feel good about myself today. And that might just be by me saying, actually, you know what, you're right, and you've actually got this one. And I think that's a way to be a role model, and that's something that I try and aspire to do. To just admit, kind of when I've someone trumped me or done better, and I hope that in that sense, someone can be like, oh, but let's actually take a step back and admit that to ourselves. And that in itself shows vulnerability, right? You don't want to be in a group of people turning around and going, oh, actually, you know what, you got me, and
humility. That's the word.
Exactly.
I think I find it very interesting what you said about the vulnerability thing. I heard this amazing perspective on it. I can't remember who it's from, but it's this man. He's a world-renowned psychologist, one of the best in the world. And he's talking about his 9-year-old daughter was crying the one day, and he's trying to figure out why his 9-year-old daughter was crying. And he's speaking to her, and he asked her, "Listen, are you sad? Or are you upset? Are you angry right now?" And she goes, "No, I'm angry, I think." And he goes, "Then why are you crying?" And she says, "Well, when I cry, my sister comes and comforts me, and when I'm angry, everyone goes away." And
Sure.
It made me think about the whole, with men, I think there's a bit of a reverse effect where people only really care about men's emotions when it's angry. When it's angry, people listen to me and we want to solve a problem. But when sadness, you feel like they're looking down at you or feeling pity for you, and that's not what you want. And I want to try and find a way to normalize for men to be able to be like, I'm not angry, I'm just hurt. Because even for myself, I find myself some days when I'm really just sad and someone asks me what's up, I'll say, no, I'm frustrated with this. Because I can't be sad about it, I have to be frustrated. And I want to try and figure out how do you change that space for men so they can just see like, no, this hurt my feelings. Like, this actually made me sad today.
I do that often. I have my people that I go to. I think that's one thing I could say is find your one or two people, to do that with. And it might be unexpected. Maybe it might not be your best mate, but it might be someone that you go to coffee run on a Friday with, that you just, every time you run 5Ks with, you speak to that guy. And it, and then if you're having a crap day, you kind of, maybe that's your person to kind of speak to that. Pick your people, pick your people and express your vulnerability. And I think if you've done it once, it becomes comfortable to do it again. And that's what I've found. And I've found that, there's one or two mates, and Brenton Greaves is a mate of mine. He's someone that I that I do that with. My brother is someone that I do that with as well, and it's not a lot of I don't tend to do that to my parents, you know, because then it's the same kind of thing you said, you know. Then they start to comfort you, and it's like, well, I just want you to listen, you know. So that's what I would say is find your one or two people, 2-3 people, and like let them know that you want to be, you know, that's your person. And if you're going through something bad, like that's your person, you know.
I find it so interesting. I love that part where you say they try to comfort you, but you just want to be heard.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that we also need to do is we need to be better at holding space for people.
Yeah.
And I always reference that clip from Theo Vaughn and Sean Strickland. Have you seen the?
I follow Sean Strickland. I just haven't seen the clip.
Oh, Sean Strickland was on Theo Vaughn's podcast, and you know who Theo Vaughn is, right?
Yeah.
The goofiest guy in the world. But Sean was talking about his dad's abuse, and how bad it was, and how like he used to hide under his mom's bed to make sure the dad didn't kill her in his sleep, and he was getting really choked up about it, and just before he like kind of breaks down, starts crying, he like chokes on like I can't stop believing in God at that point.
Yeah. Sure.
And Theo's like seeing him crying, and he just says, "Hey man, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We can just sit here if you want. We don't have to talk. But I'm sorry."
Yeah. I think there's something that might be from my school days, but you listen to people and you hear people, right? So listening is a choice, hearing is almost like a consequence of a conversation, right? So I always try and listen to. I'm not the best at doing it. I'm really not, and I don't think a lot of people are. And you always want to have something to say to what they're saying, you know, and sometimes in doing that, you're not listening to what they're saying, you're hearing what they're saying. And while you're hearing that, you're just thinking of the next thing to say. And I do it sometimes where I'm like always saying something to what.
I think men do it so often, dude. We're always in fix-it mode. Like, the stove is broken, go fix it. Your friend is broken, go fix it.
Absolutely, you know, and I think it's great. I had it. There was a moment last year with Amish. He was actually on your pod, but he was speaking to me about something, and I always just said something back to him, and I actually clocked it myself where I was like, you know what, I need to stop talking. This guy doesn't want me to say anything. He just wants me to listen. And at that point, I just stopped, and I was like, dude, like, you know what you got to do. You know you're gonna figure it out. Just listen to yourself. You know, listen to yourself, to what you're saying, and like, I'm here. Like, lean it all on me. Do you know what I mean? Like, say what you want to say and get it out. And I never followed up with him on that specific topic, but you know, it was like a thing of, it's just in that moment realizing that, you know, that guy, like, he doesn't want me to say anything. He just wants me to listen.
He just wants to be heard.
Yeah.
Okay. I think you know what time it is.
Oh. Okay, let's do it.
So, lightning round.
All right.
So, just a clarification of the rules. Can't repeat.
Okay.
Can't elaborate. Can't change an answer. And you only got 15 seconds to answer.
Can I start it?
It'd be really rude for me to say no, yeah.
Can I start it? All right.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Question 1. Chelsea Champions League title or Boca three-peat?
Book a three-peat.
You can only buy one house in your life. Who gets it? You or your mom?
My mom.
You versus Andre, one-on-one basketball. Who's winning?
Definitely, that guy's ankles are gone. Me for sure.
Best character from Suits.
Harvey Specter.
In your next evolution, what trait is game prioritized?
Loyalty.
MC at Shorty's wedding or dinner with Matthew McConaughey?
Sorry, Shores. Dinner with Matthew McConaughey.
What's better fuel, obsession or discipline?
Discipline.
How many minutes are you going to beat Andre by at High Rocks?
9.
Best view in Cape Town?
Your best view. Top of Lion's Head.
Last but not least, who do you want to see next on the interview of Olgu?
Ruslan Asimov.
Ruslan, you've been invited to the
Come
podcast.
out, buddy. Come out.
It's up to you to accept or decline. Kris, thanks so much for coming on, man. It's been a pleasure having you. Before you leave, do you want to leave any messages with the audience?
First things first, thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun. Good to talk about things I'm passionate about. And I actually want to ask you a question.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
So if you had to get $10 million right now, would you take it?
No.
You kind of screwed my whole question up.
Okay, let's say yes. I'll take it.
Okay. So I want to ask you again. So if I could give you $10 million right now, would you take it?
Yes.
But the catch was that you wouldn't wake up tomorrow. Would you still take it?
No.
So that means that your life is worth more than $1 million. So wake up with a smile on your face and make the most of your day. So I don't want to leave you with.
Let's see how I fucked with that one. Sorry.
Well, if I didn't leave it with you, then I'll leave it with you guys, for the audience.
That's actually brilliant. If anyone wants to keep up with you, know what you're doing, where can they find you?
Instagram is probably the only place. Otherwise, catch me at Aruba on a Friday night.
Catch him at Aruba every Friday.
Yeah. Oh, and at Coffee Run every Friday. If you don't know about Coffee Run, come to Coffee Run every Friday.
Every Friday.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you've enjoyed this episode of the interview of Olgu, please like, comment, share with friends, subscribe, follow for more. Until next time, have a great day. Peace.